they're going to play that thing as long as they possibly can. 6:20 on a Friday morning. Good morning. It is good to be here with you on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Of course, a Good Friday as well. So yesterday, a federal judge imposed new restrictions on Doge. This came last night, limiting its access to Social Security systems that hold personal data on millions of Americans. This was done by U.S. District Judge Ellen Hollander, and the preliminary injunction in the case was brought by a group of labor unions and retirees who allege Doge's recent actions violate privacy laws and present massive information security risks. Hollander had previously issued a temporary restraining order. The injunction does allow Doge staffers to access data that's been redacted or stripped of anything personally identifiable if they undergo training and background checks. So this is not the most egregious thing. It's not. I still think Doge can get plenty of its work done without the information that this judge is telling them they can't have. I'm also fine with these Doge staffers going through some background checks and maybe a little bit of training. But I find it hysterical because it's Friday. I'm not going to sit here and be fire and brimstone on a Friday. So I find it more hysterical that people continue to believe that these Doge staffers are trying to steal your grandma's Social Security check. I would just ask them politely to watch the interview of the Doge staffers who were on with Brett Baer on Fox News. Maybe that was, 2 weeks ago? And realize that these are some of the most successful people in the country. You obviously have Elon Musk. You have, entrepreneurs who founded major companies in America like PayPal. You have multiple billionaires involved. I know that some of you think that every rich person is bad. I promise you, your wealth does not make you good or bad. Your wealth is irrelevant to what kind of a person you are. There are really good wealthy people. There are not so good wealthy people. And that's true for those in the middle class, and that's true for those who are poor. Your wealth does not define what kind of person you are. Now, to one political party, it does, because the rich are evil, the rich are bad. But I promise you, you take a step back, common sense would tell you that how much money you have does not mean that you're going to go out there and try to steal somebody else's money. But when you're of the belief and when you're of the mindset that the only way that you can get rich is by screwing the little guy, that's how you then get to a place where you look at Doge staffers and you say, well, obviously they're trying to steal my grandma's Social Security checks because they got rich by screwing everybody else, John.
We had to raise our standards, Pete. And no longer rail against millionaires, it's billionaires.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Bernie.
I find that interesting. There, so it's billionaires now, not millionaires.
Well, of course, inflation.
Because they're getting donations from and are of that class and of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Top 1% is moving to the left very quickly. So now they've got to make it all about the billionaires. And it's really just about billionaires they don't like, right? That's the other thing.
Don't forget oligarchs.
Yes, they love George Soros, who owns, one of our competitor radio stations, 98.1 KMBZ. How's it going over there, Georgie? I'm glad we're here on KCMO 95.7. Set that preset on your radio dial right now and download the KCMO Talk Radio app. George Soros will not get any of your information when you have the KCMO Talk Radio app on your phone. I promise you that. So that's where you sit there and you say, okay, it's more of a mindset. It's not about what you're actually thinking. It's not about, the reality of the situation. It's just these are Elon Musk and his rich buddies. They must be bad inherently, and they're trying to steal from grandma. You know what they call your grandma's Social Security check in their checking account? They call that a rounding error. That's what they call it. Mike in Kansas City on KCMO. What's up, big guy?
Yeah, limit access to information. You limit access to all the dead people getting Social Security. It's that simple.
Well, yes, and
you
that's
find these radical fanatic judges, like the judge that did this, All that money goes to fund things like campaigns in Colorado to legalize mutilating children, things like that. These causes have less than 10% of support, but they get all this money. They're getting all this money from the fraudulent defunding of the masses from our taxes. And that's why they're all upset. All this stuff about sticking it to the rich is a diversion. They're upset they're losing all this dark money that they're stealing from the government, from you and me and all us other hardworking members of the masses.
Yeah. I still think that Doge is going to be able to have, Mike, thank you, a lot of success. This might be a slight step back, but I'm all in. As you know, you know how I feel, right?
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
All right. That's how I feel. Not whacking enough. And they're going to get there. It might take a little bit more time, but I do believe they're going to get there. Now, speaking of money and finances and Doge and everything else, Trump is not happy with Jerome Powell. He is the Fed chair. They have been going back and forth over the last few days. Trump is largely upset that Powell is not interested in reducing interest rates right now. He thinks that Powell should be cutting rates. That obviously would be good for people when it comes to, refinancing, loans, all those different things. It would just make life easier for people who right now find themselves in a lot of debt. It also would help maybe stimulate parts of the economy that need it. Powell says he's not budging at this point in time. So Trump was asked about Powell yesterday, and, well, in typical Trump fashion, he did not hold back when talking about Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
On Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Sounds like The Apprentice. If I want him out, he'll be out real fast. Don't you worry, he's going to be gone before long. That was Trump yesterday talking about Jerome Powell. If I want him gone, he'll be gone. Now, reports are that his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is saying, hey, pump the brakes here. All right, let's not fire this guy just yet. That could lead to more market turmoil and upheaval. But Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network, he has been all over this story behind the scenes with his sources at the White House. He's on the Fox Business Network. He's a Mizzou guy as well. And he's going to join us at 7:05 to give us the latest and also talk about what this means for you, for the markets, everything else. So that's coming up at 7 o'clock on KCMO 95.7 FM. I never thought I'd see this. But The Atlantic, the far-left Atlantic publication, has this headline, Republicans are right about? I'll tell you the answer next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Look at this headline from The Atlantic. Can you believe this? The Atlantic, yes, that far left operation online. They used to be a newspaper back in the heyday, but like so many, fell by the wayside. They wrote this piece this week. Republicans are right about soda.
Talk about a bombshell.
That's right. Didn't think I'd see it. Public health groups are tying themselves in knots over a GOP crackdown on the sugary drink. And the article goes on to basically note that Republicans right now, as part of the Make America Healthy Again movement, the MAHA movement, as some are calling it, are looking to basically limit things like buying soda with your food stamps. Now, this is a no-brainer. Soda is obviously a big reason that adults in the United States consume on average 2 to 3 times more than the daily recommended intake of sugar. The federal government's own research, as they write here, has shown that Americans who receive food stamps have worse diets than non-participants with similar incomes. And soda is obviously part of that problem. So even a publication like The Atlantic is admitting that on this issue, Republicans actually have a point. And listen, I'm trying to find things we can all agree on here. What's the case for why the government should fund unhealthy drinks for poor people? What does that do? Like, we're not talking about saying you can't buy food with your food stamps. We're not saying you can't buy drinks with your food stamps. But when you're talking about things that cause people to be diabetic, that do nothing, there's no positive to soda. I mean, I probably have 2 Diet Cokes a month, give or take. That's my soda intake, which John has by about 6:20 in the morning.
No, and when I have quit, though, I have been gone without it for a while. I don't know how you could do what you do, because isn't it such like drinking pancake syrup after a while to you?
No, I love a good Diet Coke, but I have probably one.
I find
when
I quit and then I pick one up again, I really don't like it and have to kind of choke it down, and then the habit renews itself.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, so I wondered. I don't think I could do a couple of months. It's some or none.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, Mark? I've really never seen Mark drink soda, at least not here in the building.
I usually do when we go out.
Oh, okay. What's your soda of choice?
Man, I probably Dr. Pepper.
Regular or diet?
I go back and forth.
You go back and forth.
My dentist tells me to do diet because there's no sugar in it.
Yeah. Well, you already lost one tooth, Mark. We want to keep all your teeth intact there, buddy.
Yeah.
Of course, what breaks me of it is when the bill comes. I got charged $4.50 for one drink one time, just a soft drink. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, I'm with you there.
That'll break me.
Yeah.
That'll break me real quick.
That'll do it. Hopefully you got free refills at $4.50 a pop. My gosh.
Yeah, right.
That's crazy. So this article goes on the note that Republicans across the country are cracking down on soda. And the Atlantic piece notes that, Texas, Arkansas, West Virginia, Idaho, Nebraska, Michigan, Arizona, South Carolina are in position to potentially ban buying soda with food stamps. Now, Kansas and Missouri both had bills introduced on this issue. In Missouri, the most recent article I could find comes from early March, where a ban on use of food stamps for candy and soda was debated by Missouri lawmakers. Like most things in Jeff City, as far as I can tell, nothing happened with it. And same thing in Kansas. It looks like a bill was introduced trying to ban candy and soda purchases with food stamps. But once again, that article I found in Kansas goes back to early February. So I don't think anything's been done with this on either side of our state line. But there are other state legislatures that are going ahead and putting a ban on this. And they all should do it. Because what we want to do is try to lift people out of poverty, right? That's the purpose of any government welfare program. Try to provide a hand up, not a hand out. And if you get into a cycle in poverty where you're buying really unhealthy food and drinks, you're overweight to obese, that filters down to your children, it's harder to get out of that cycle. It's harder than it's ever been, right? We've created a system right now where it's too much government. And frankly, there's not enough definition of actually how to try to build people up and give them a hand up and not a handout. And if we're creating a permanent underclass that's obese, that is eating unhealthy, that is just unhealthy in general, that then needs what? More medical care? That would be part of Medicaid. We're just adding to our own expense line. That's all we're doing here. We're not accomplishing what we want to accomplish, which is how do we help people get out of poverty? Now, some are calling Republicans hypocrites for this, right? Some are saying, hey, you guys 10 years ago were all about saying to Michael Bloomberg in New York City, take your hands off my big gulp there, chump. Well, that was more about a free market deal, right? That didn't involve government spending. That was about, should the government tell an individual what size of a drink they should be allowed to purchase? Now, in hindsight, it was kind of goofy. I'll say that much for Republicans to make that Custer's last stand on the big gulp. It was kind of goofy. I mean, I think Bloomberg's heart was in the right place. And frankly, he was right about big gulps being just awful for you. But it was a different time in America. Bloomberg was on to something. If you want a mea culpa from me, fine. But it also is not an apples to apples comparison. Saying that somebody with their own money should not be able to buy a big gulp is different than saying, hey, if we are going to provide you government dollars, we should not be spending our government dollars on unnecessary and unhealthy food items that then only are going to cost us more in the long run when people are overweight, need medications, need to go see doctors, and God forbid, need medical treatment as a result. That also is going to cost the taxpayer in the form of Medicaid. It's not exactly apples to apples here, but it's something that every legislature should be looking at. And it doesn't look like there was any movement on either side of our state line on this thing in Kansas or Missouri, but hopefully next year's the year. It's a no-brainer. What we need is a focus on this. We need people saying, hey, being healthy is a big part of the battle here. It's a big part of getting yourself and your family on the right track and feeling like, hey, I've got a future. I can hand it down to the next generation instead of saying, I'm overweight, I'm diabetic, I'm drinking soda, I need food stamps, I need, the government's medical attention as well. That's a mess waiting to happen, and it only snowballs, John.
What if soda pop, Coke, people are calling here saying, don't call it soda. We call it pop, I guess. Anyway, what if that becomes the new cigarettes? Can you see a time where we move forward and say, you know what?
Big taxes?
Yeah, well, old people still do it, but younger generation just doesn't. And
yeah.
Finally, it just kind of fades out. And it's like my Dr. Pepper gets stamped with the surgeon's, warning and all kinds of stuff.
Well, I would say this much. I could see that day coming, but also think about this. How many different seltzers are out there and soda/pop alternatives are out there as well? I mean, there's a lot of
drink
stuff.
Things, you mean like that? Stuff like that?
Just
there's
seltzers.
Juices and okay, sure.
There are now. I mean, I just see them in my house. I don't know what any of them are anymore, but they're basically just 0-calorie seltzers. They don't have a lot of additives, if any at all, and they give you that fizzle and that pop that you want from a soda without being a soda, without the sugar and everything else that's in a soda. Exactly.
Like flavored water.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There's a lot of that out there right now. There are more options than ever. Now, is a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper going to one day cost $15 like a pack of cigarettes? Probably not. Probably not.
That's the original energy drink.
Yeah, exactly. That's how John got started.
10, 2, and 4.
How long have you been drinking all that Dr. Pepper? 40 years?
Oh, no. I used to drink Pepsi all the time, but I even drank it as a kid, so I'm a bad case study. Or maybe I should be studying and donate my body to science and go, okay, here's a boomer that had pop since he was a kid.
Yeah.
You're probably right. My kids didn't drink it as much. We didn't get it for them, and I didn't drink it, and they're okay with that, too. They don't drink it so much.
Yeah. Well, maybe we will send your body in for a case study when all is said and done here, John.
It'll have a return to sender.
The 6 at 6, top 6 stories of the 6 o'clock hour we'll get to coming up on KCMO. And then Charlie Gasparino of the Fox Business Network on the markets at the end of the week and the Powell-Trump feud. 1 hour from now, last chance on this show to win the Kid Rock tickets. So we're in mid-April already, right? And you're just getting out of the shower at 6:45, and you're like, you know what? I'm listening to Pete on the KCMO Talk Radio app right now, and I got to get a new tub or shower. Well, guess what? That's what my friends can do for you over at The Plumbing Pro here in Kansas City. At The Plumbing Pro, They just want to make sure that you are taken care of with a local option to that tub or shower replacement. You see them all the time with the national guys on TV, but the Plumbing Pro has been in business for 45 years in Kansas City. That's what Steve and his team have been doing, gaining your trust. And guess what? You don't stay in business for 45 years in Kansas City without earning the trust of this town. And that's what they've done. And right now they're offering up Pete's deal. $2,000 off and 12 months same as cash when you go to the Plumbing Pro and you say, hey, I want to replace my tub or my shower. You'll have the same person with you from start to finish on the project. They could be in and out in as quickly as a couple of days. And all you have to do is go to theplumbingpro.com. That's theplumbingpro.com or call 816-763-8200. The website, theplumbingpro.com.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
6:50, good morning. Glad you're here. We will be giving away the Kid Rock tickets final time on this show at 7:45 this morning on KCMO. But let's get to the top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Jackson County Executive Frank White cannot get out of his own way. What an insult this was to anybody with common sense yesterday when Frank White, up against the deadline to roll back the 2023 property tax assessments in Jackson County to a maximum of 15%, according to the Missouri State Tax Commission, put out a statement and he said that he will limit tax assessments to 15% for 2025, like this year. Nothing about 2023. A clear violation of the Missouri State Tax Commission. I hope they do not slow down at the state level. I hope that they call this out for what it is, which is Frank White basically not complying with their order. And I hope they keep at it on behalf of the Jackson County taxpayer. This is even worse than I would have imagined from Frank White. I thought he would have either said, you know what, I'm going to comply or pound sand. Instead, he tried to trick people into thinking he was complying when he's not complying with anything. The requirement from the Missouri State Tax Commission was about 2023, not about 2025. 2025 had nothing to do with it. And he's trying to get around this thing by saying, yeah, sure, I'll limit it to 15% for this year. That wasn't the requirement from the state, my man. It wasn't. Just brutal from Frank White. Sean Smith will be here in 1 hour to talk about it. He's from the Missouri State Legislature.
Number 2.
Or he's from the Jackson County Legislature, excuse me. Number 2 this morning, we have 3 finalists for the Kansas City, Missouri city manager gig. And those finalists to replace Brian Platt are all known to Kansas City. You have current acting city manager Kamiko Gilmore. The other finalists are assistant city manager Mario Vasquez. And then you've got Pat Klein, a former assistant manager in Kansas City who retired 2 years ago after overseeing the construction of the new airport terminal. So those are the individuals who are the finalists to replace Brian Platt. They are all internal candidates. The city claims that they looked at hundreds of people, internal and external, and those are their top 3.
Number 3.
Let's go to number 3, and let's go to Olathe. Second time in a week, there has been a shooting in this part of Olathe, 1,000 block of Ridgeview Road, that is Ridgeview and Herald. Near Two Trails Park, Olathe police are investigating after one person critically hurt in a shooting. This was at about 10:40 p.m. last night, right by the Santa Fe Middle School there. The Olathe police say that everyone associated with the shooting is in custody. There is no threat to the public at this time, and Olathe PD is expected to share more details coming up at some point this morning. So that obviously not a good situation down there. And they just had an incident where someone was killed last week in that very same spot.
They need to keep kids away from the skate park that late at night.
Yeah, you're right. There is a skate park over there, isn't there?
Skate park, pickleball, some other stuff.
You're right. Right due south of the school there. That's a good point there, Mark. We'll have to see what they've got planned.
Number 4.
Details have emerged about the Florida State University shooting suspect. This happened yesterday that left 2 dead and 6 wounded. And now the suspect has been identified as Phoenix Eichner, 20-year-old student who allegedly opened fire at his school. And Eichner was shot and wounded by responding officers after refusing to comply with commands. Police said that his mother is a sheriff's deputy with the Leon County Sheriff's Office, and that they believe Eichner shot the victims using his mother's former service handgun, which she had kept for personal use after the force upgraded her to new weapons. So we don't know much about this individual. He is alive, so hopefully a motive will become clear at some point. But Eichner was a longstanding member of the Sheriff's Office Youth Advisory Council. So not exactly what you would consider, at least on the surface, a prime suspect for a school shooting. So we'll be finding more about that in the days ahead, I'm sure.
Number 5.
What is going on with the Royals? My goodness, they can't get out of their own way. Jeez. Royals lose again last night to the Tigers 6-1. They have lost 4 in a row. They have lost 6 of their last 7 games. And Riley Green's breaking out of a slump for Detroit. 3 hits, 2 RBIs. Royals hitting coach was tossed out of the game at the end. It's like, dude, get that fired up with your own players, not the umpires.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it was some bad umping, especially against Bobby Witt Jr., our only good hitter right now. But
I get it. I know that frustration boils over, but it's very early. You can't freak out about baseball in mid-April. I mean, the sports guys can because they got nothing else to talk about, and they have to create some kind of manufactured outrage. I'm throwing the towel in. I'm done. It's April 18th. I'm out of here. Stop. But you got to admit, after the way last year went, 8-12 with a 4-game losing streak is not what anybody had in mind for this team right now. All right?
Number 6.
And number 6, Mark and I had a little laugh about this before the show, and I said, you know what? I'm going to put this in the 6 at 6. Kadarius Toney, of course, one-time Kansas City Chief, is going to be retiring and will start a new career as a rapper. Yeah, there you go. Kadarius Toney starting his rap career. How you feel about that?
I don't feel terrible about that. I can't play the clip of his song because there's too many bleeps. I didn't have time to get
no,
that.
I know. You'd be having to comb through that audio all morning for the amount of bleeps in there. But, he is, of course, a former first-round pick of the New York Giants, played at Florida, came here to Kansas City, had a couple of spectacular, unforgettable moments to help this team win a Super Bowl. But he's done at 26 years old, and his rap name is Young Joka.
He missed a good opportunity. He could have been Corn Dog. D-A-W-G.
Corn Dog.
The play that he scored the touchdown in was called Corn Dog.
That's right. That's right. Good job there. Well done there, Mark.
Oh, he's had his name, though, since before he came here, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's his brand.
Young Joka?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, good for him.
Look who's down on the show.
Maybe we'll be... Maybe our friends down the hall at Power 105 will be playing Young Joka before long.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network on the Trump-Powell feud next. Before we get to our next guest, just a quick update. I want to thank a member of the Kansas legislature, Senator Karen Tyson, who gave us some updated information. We were talking last hour about whether or not Kansas and or Missouri would ban folks using food stamps from purchasing soda, which is a big push right now. So this is something that passed the legislature. No soda or candy on SNAP. That's food stamps. Governor vetoed it. I guess Laura Kelly likes to keep her constituents who are poor nice and fat and diabetic and unhealthy. And the Senate overrode it, but the House did not vote on the override. So the veto sustained. So that's what happened on the Kansas side of the state line. Let's go to Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network. He's joining us on KCMO. He has been on fire with some of the reporting out of his sources when it comes to the feud between President Trump and Jerome Powell. Trump saying yesterday he basically wants the Fed chair fired. So, Charlie, what's the latest on this? Good morning.
Listen, he wants him fired. There's no doubt in my mind, based on my sources. There's the timing might not be right. He still needs his trade deals. But, I think Powell will cross some sort of a Rubicon with Trump. Trump believes there really isn't inflation right now. He thinks that we're in a deflationary period. He points to gas prices going down. And they have been. He points to egg prices coming down. There's obviously anecdotal evidence to support what he's saying. And he believes that, while these trade talks are going on, if you're going to keep interest rates where they are, you're literally hurting the economy. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just explaining what Trump believes. And Powell seems impervious to moving, right now. So his agenda is at loggerheads with MAGA. And when you have that and you have someone like Trump, well, what was that old thing that he used to say on TV? Jerome, you're fired. I think, listen, I from what I understand, Kevin Warsh, who's an economist who Trump likes, he is a former Fed official, at least now at Stanford, really smart guy. And I heard Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, they both talked Trump out of it. But from what I understand, there's no doubt that he wants him out. And, the question is when. And he might throw him out tomorrow. For all I know, he definitely wants him out.
Yeah. Can he just fire him whenever he wants?
Now it depends on, the law is written that, you can fire someone for, I can't remember the exact language, but it has to be something along the lines of malfeasance. And, then it becomes a court interpretation of malfeasance. If he does fire him, it'll go to court. There's no doubt. I don't understand why the president shouldn't have that sort of power. If you have the power to appoint, you should have you should be working at the will of the president. And, the people I talk to kind of think that when this thing hits the Supreme Court, because it'll, Trump might get overruled by the D.C. Circuit or whoever. And I'm assuming that's where it would be adjudicated initially. Then you go to the Supreme Court. They've upheld executive powers, that the president's power on appointments and things of this nature is plenary, as they call it. The Federal Reserve Act was created by Congress, so there is a congressional role here. So, maybe my analysis is wrong, but in any event, this thing is for the showdown of the ages. But who would want the job if Trump is tweeting about you all day? What a jerk you are! It sounds like. Who would you want to be on a beach somewhere? I'm sure he's got a few bucks.
Well, yeah, I get it. You're right about that. It's interesting, too, because, of course, Trump had appointed Jerome Powell to the position back in 2018. So is it fair to say, though, Trump's calling him Too Late Jerome or whatever nickname he has for him there, Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business Network, Mizzou's finest graduate on KCMO. Is it fair to say, though, that Powell, he definitely was late during the Biden years on increasing rates, right? That's a fair criticism of Powell. And now you now you don't want to get caught with your rates being too high, at a somewhat tumultuous time currently. So his criticism of Powell is fair. The question is, what does it mean right now for reducing rates?
You know, Powell was obviously wrong on inflation, right? We all know it. It was one of the biggest policy mistakes ever that he kept, rates too low. But that's kind of like not what Trump is criticizing him. I wonder if Trump would criticize him keeping rates too low back in the day. You know what I'm saying? It's just, Trump has always been traditionally a critic of Jerome Powell not cutting rates. So that's been going on for forever. During Trump 1, I just remember battles, between both of them that, scared the markets. And when it was a scare of the market, that wasn't the existential scare we have now. And the problem is, I think, for Trump to do it now is that this trade thing really has thrown a monkey wrench into the economy. I mean, we haven't seen all the numbers yet. We keep getting backdated data, like consumer confidence is pretty current, and that's way down. But employment data, stuff of that nature, is all March. It's none of the stuff that is hitting now. You know what I'm saying? Post those numbers, and from what I understand, it's not great right now.
Yeah. So the average person right now in Missouri and Kansas, they're sitting there, they're seeing the Trump-Powell feud, and they're trying to figure out what it means for them, whether it's their portfolio, whether it's, getting a better car loan rate, better mortgage rate, how this stuff could impact them. What is the thing that they should be thinking about as they see this feud play out on TV and social media between these two?
Well, if you're fully invested in this market, my view is, you expect wicked turbulence. I mean, I don't know when you got in, is there, and I don't know if it's enough money to matter.
Yeah.
If it's a lot of money, you should really think about getting kind of defensive because, who knows how long this is going to go. We don't know about China. China is a big, we do a lot of business there. If we go, all out war against them, that's going to have implications. It's going to have implications for them and us. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is, inflation, if that does hit, remember, Jerome Powell can lower rates all he wants. If we have wicked amounts of inflation, particularly as he's lowering rates, he'll get spikes in the 10-year yield. That's something to look at. If that happens, all consumer borrowing rates go up. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's where this gets really hairy, and that's where stocks could sell off more. So if I was looking at any rate every day, I'd look at the 10-year. And, you kind of want it not to get to 4.5. You want to keep it as close to 4 as possible, even if that signals a recession. One of the problems that with these tariff things, and this is why it gets hard to give an answer, is that it could spark stagflation. And that's when you have a slowdown in the economy and high inflation. You see, then that's a really difficult, economic conundrum. We had it in the late 70s. I remember it. It's Paul Volcker to squeeze it out. He just increased the stag part, so to speak, raised rates dramatically, slowed down the economy wickedly until he got inflation under control, and then it was off to the races. And then you had with Ronald Reagan, you had his pro-growth policies, and we had like 10 fat years of very good economy, good markets. We had a boom on Wall Street we haven't seen in years. I remember, going to Wall Street in the 80s, what it was like. It was pretty amazing. So, Trump has some of those Reagan policies, though, as you know. So if we could get through this trade thing, there's stuff candy, gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. I just don't know the trajectory to it would be really nasty.
Yeah, and the tariff angle obviously plays into that as well. And that's something that, are you, in the last minute here, Charlie, what are you hearing on that front with the tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are the root cause, Okay, it depends on who you talk to. I spoke with someone in Treasury yesterday. They told me that the talks with Japan are going exceedingly well. We're going to have deals soon, and the sooner the better. So stay tuned. I would think, next week.
Okay.
And I think the whole thing is to just isolate China. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of it's actually cutting what they consider fair trade deals, and we'll see. how hard they're bargaining. We don't. I mean, I'm not in the room. I can only go with what people tell me. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to cover this. I try to be fair. But it's not an easy thing to cover. That's kind of where we are. I think next week is going to be kind of crucial. I believe that we announced the Ukraine deal next week on Thursday. I'll be in Washington for a conference of the publication Semaphore. They're having a big DC conference. I'll be moderating one of the panels on Wednesday on energy, and I'll be bouncing around. Hopefully talking to sources. We should probably talk midweek.
I love it. Well, you're doing a hell of a job on the reporting front with this stuff, Charlie Gasparino. Also, he's got his book out, Go Woke, Go Broke, the inside story of the radicalization of corporate America. A good read and worth your time as well. Charlie, have a great weekend. We'll be following next week. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Pete. Talk to you soon.
All right. Great work by Charlie Gasparino on KCMO 95.7 FM. Really, really, I think he's the best reporter right now in the country in terms of having the right sources when it comes to the Fed, when it comes to Trump world, and then Wall Street as well. You check off all three boxes with sources, Charlie's your guy. And you know what? The fact that he's got ties as a Mizzou guy makes it all that much better for us here in Kansas City. 7:16, half hour till we got those Kid Rock tickets for you. He's at T-Mobile tomorrow night. 2 more chances today, 7:45, and then again at 10:45 with Kevin Keatsman. Coming up, we had a big conversation about this yesterday. RFK has confirmed what the plans are when it comes to his investigation into autism rates skyrocketing. And is it what we wanted to hear or the opposite of that? We'll tell you next on KCMO. All right, you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, boy, we just talked to Charlie about the turmoil in business and what's happening in the world. And you also have this artificial intelligence thing hanging over everybody's head. And you're trying to figure out, how do I incorporate this into my business? Well, about a month ago, you heard me talk about how Centric here in Kansas City did a live AI demonstration, and 50 business owners showed up in town. It was a great time. Maybe you couldn't go. Maybe you thought, hey, the timing's not right. Well, now is the time for you to act. And if you're curious about AI, but you don't know where to start, Centric has affordable, real-world solutions to help your business take that first step with confidence. If you have no idea what you're doing with AI, that's fine. Let Centric just start the conversation with you. There's no pressure. I've met these guys. They're not going to try to sell you something that's not a fit for you or your business. They just want to meet you and talk you through your biggest business challenges and then figure out how artificial intelligence can help solve them. That's the name of the game right now. Everybody's doing it. And if you're not getting on board, you're going to be caught behind. You don't want to see that happen. And most small to medium-sized companies don't have the expertise to implement AI. Centric can do that. They've been training the technology workforce in Kansas City for decades. Now they can help you with AI. Go to centric.com/AI. That's CENTRIQ.com/AI for more information about AI solutions that fit your business needs.
On Friday's Guy Benson Show, chief political anchor here at Fox News, Brett Baer, on all the political news of the day. A big show coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio.
And if you didn't hear Guy Benson yesterday, he is really looking forward to coming to Kansas City on June 12th. He will be here for a meet and greet event and a show. We'll be at Boulevard in their suite, and tickets are going fast. They are on sale now at KCMOTalkRadio.com. We got them out to the Yankees game. We're getting them out to the Yankees-Royals game the night before on June 11th. Just happened to work out that way. And then we'll do it a big event with our listeners, and you can buy your tickets now at KCMOTalkRadio.com or a table. If you want a table, well, those are available too, and you get a discount when you buy the whole table. So yesterday we had a big conversation about RFK Jr. and his announcement from Wednesday when he said, you know what, it's time for us to investigate why these autism rates are skyrocketing over the last generation. And I'm all about it. I don't know why you wouldn't be on board with this, even if you didn't vote for Trump. There's nothing about this that I think is political. The only way it's political is if you work backwards on this. If you're RFK and you say, hey, I want the answer to be some vaccine that's causing autism, and you work your way backwards. He's not going to do that, though. He said it last night on Fox. This is not going to be start with the conclusion and work back from there. Like, the COVIDians did 5 years ago, where they had their conclusion and they justified their conclusion working backwards on things like the shot and masks and everything else. 6 feet of social distancing, all that, nonsensical BS that we now know, they worked backwards on. The only way you could criticize RFK is if you said he's got an agenda, he wants to find conclusion X, and he's going to work backwards from X. But he said last night on Fox that's not how he wants this to go.
President Trump asked me to find out what's causing it. And I'm approaching that agnostically. We are looking at everything we're going to do. We're going to be very transparent in how we design the studies. We're going to farm the studies out to 15 premier research groups from all over the country. And we're going to be transparent about our protocols, about the data sets, and then every study will have to be replicated. We're going to look at mold. We're going to look at the age of parents. We're going to look at food and food additives. We're going to look at pesticides and toxic exposures. We're going to look at medicines. We're going to look at vaccines. We're going to look at everything.
That's exactly how you want any medical study to go. Yeah, put vaccines in there, but also mold, age of parents. We know that the age of parents obviously has gone up tremendously over the last generation. People are having fewer kids. And when they're having fewer kids, they're also having kids at an older age. Food, additives, pesticides, study all of it. I don't care what the answer is. No one should care. That's the thing about science. It's always evolving. There is no settled science, despite what Fauci told us, 5 years ago. Science is never settled. It's always changing. And if you go into this transparently with an open mind, agnostically, that's what you want your political leaders to do on something like this. And I hope they find the answer sooner than later because, man, do we need it. Coming up, did you see what Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man, was wearing yesterday? It has ties to Kansas City. We'll tell you next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk. If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Oh, no, he didn't. Oh, yes, he did. 7:35. Good morning. It is good to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. So Viral photos were obviously all over the internet, all over the world yesterday of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, also known in the eyes of American mainstream media as Maryland man or Maryland father, not like illegal immigrant wife beater or anything like that, meeting with Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. And I'm looking at some of these photos yesterday and I'm saying, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? The first video you can't really tell, or the first photo you can't really tell. The second photo, you say to yourself, I recognize that logo. And then the third photo, ding, 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 we got a giveaway here. Abrego Garcia is sitting at a table in El Salvador with Maryland U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, wearing a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl 57 hat from last year when they beat the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if the Chicago Bulls attire was not available, but he is sitting there at a table in jeans and a button-up shirt with a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl hat on. And it's on my X at Pete Mundo. I zoomed in on the hat. That way you could see it for yourself and get a good look. But that was a plot twist that I admit I did not see coming.
My brain went straight to Xavier Babudar.
Yeah.
The bank robber.
The bank robber.
Wolf in sheep's clothing or whatever they call him.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about him.
We've had some high-profile criminals.
We have, yes.
Sadly.
You're right about that. And I'm like, okay, this guy's from Maryland. He was in Bulls attire. I guess Chicago Bulls attire has some gang affiliation to it. I'm not up in the lingo these days. And then he breaks out his Chiefs Super Bowl hat. I don't know if he was going for the wholesome heartland thing or what he was going for here, but I didn't have a Chiefs Super Bowl 57 hat at the top of my bingo card going into yesterday.
Yeah, I would have thought a Ravens hat or something like that. Maybe
something.
a Ray Lewis jersey.
Hey, the Commanders are in, right?
Yeah,
they're in the playoffs now. They're a hot team again. Maybe a throwback Redskins hat or something like that, although that wouldn't have satisfied, his woke base that is desperately trying to get him back to America. So he probably couldn't have rocked the Redskins hat because the people who are the wokest are the ones who are treating him like he's, an American hero, John.
It's what they had in the gift shop. Seriously, when you're the world champions, you get distributed around, right? So if there's any NFL hat in a gift shop, it would be for the world champions.
Or I thought he might have had a Chiefs Super Bowl 58 hat, because when you lose the Super Bowl, they send all your stuff to third world countries.
Right.
So I figured those might have been big in the El Salvadoran prisons. But no, it was a 57 hat. So it's like, I don't even know where he got it. Did he bring that with him to the jail in El Salvador? It's not like Chris Van Hollen is bringing him the Chiefs 57 hat. So where did he get that? Did he say, hey, I'm going to bring my lucky hats with me when I go down the prison in El Salvador? Where's this thing even come from? To John's point, maybe it's in some gift shop.
Well,
but
yeah, they don't get anything in the prison.
Yeah,
so
that's
obviously
what I
it didn't
mean.
have personal effects. Someone brought it for him.
Well, and that's what I can't figure out. Who brought it for him? And why a Chiefs Super Bowl? I have so many questions about this. And the more I think about it, the more absurd it is. How this guy, the most famous illegal immigrant of this decade from Maryland, is rocking a Chiefs Super Bowl hat from 2 years ago at this point.
Let's get some vacation shots here, right? It seemed like when I looked at him, this is vacation.
Yeah, that is kind of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a nice restaurant.
Yeah, no, have you seen, I have got to share this photo too. The way that Chris Van Hollen is looking at Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I mean, find someone in your life who looks at you the way that Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, looks at an illegal immigrant wife beater. My gosh. I mean, he's got lust in his eyes. They're sitting there at this nice fancy table, a little cherry garnish on the cocktail. It's like, what are we doing here?
Is this down for a jewelry store ad, maybe?
Yeah, and here's the thing. If this punk Chris Van Hollen, this Maryland senator, if he thinks he's coming back and trying to, get a rebate or I guess a reimbursement on this little luncheon that he had with this guy, I mean, I hope that Doge says, no, buddy, that tab's on you, okay? The taxpayer's not paying for this. But, man, he's longingly looking at Kilmar. He's just got that lust in his eyes. I can't think of the last time Kate looked at me like that, for crying out loud.
Say, what's this right off to Jill's Bodega?
Oh, man. On the text line, Pete, he should have worn a Buffalo Bills hat if he wanted the rules changed on him. Oh, that's good. Well done on the text line. Outstanding work. So last night on CNN, let's play this clip between Scott Jennings, who's the lone wolf conservative over there, and Jamel Hill. You may remember Jamel Hill from ESPN. She now infamously blew up her big career at ESPN because she could not avoid the woke politics. I mean, she had a huge contract. She was one of their stars. And she fell victim of the woke mind virus. And now she's kind of like substacking and makes an occasional appearance on CNN. And frankly, she should have stayed in sports. That was her lane. She got owned by Scott Jennings last night. Here's what it sounded like.
Supposed to be about what can you actually prove that someone has done?
I actually am not even all that worried about all the things that we have found out in the wake of the investigations into this guy. What I am worried about is that, and I'm going to grant you, he has a withholding order and he should not have gone to El Salvador.
And they admitted it was a mistake.
But even if you grant that, he has an adjudicated deportation order, and you have Democrat public officials falling all over themselves trying to get him back here without thinking through the next step, which is he's literally going to be deported somewhere else.
But not to
But
a
my
prison.
suspicion is when they bring him back, they're going to try to keep him here.
Well, that is an excellent point by Scott Jennings. Let's say, and this is where I get why the Trump administration is dug in on this. They think politically it works for them. Trump's strongest policy issue right now with the American people is his handling of immigration. And that's where the Democrats royally screwed up. And we'll get to more of that later in the show. But they actually, had Trump on these tariffs thing because they're not super popular. And they completely flipped the script. And now they're super focused on this illegal immigrant wife beater. So as Scott Jennings says there, okay, fine. Withholding order wasn't handled perfectly. He was not supposed to end up in El Salvador. But I would be fascinated by what would happen if the Trump administration were to bring this guy back and then deport him to another country, which they would very much be allowed to do. As Jennings alludes to there, once he was back in this country, once Kilmar Abrego Garcia was back in this country, you know and I know that they would probably then advocate for him to stay in America. And that actually, politically speaking, would probably also work out in the Trump administration's favor. If their political opponents would then take that next step, because you know and I know, it's not like they would say, okay, fine, he's back here in the U.S. and now you guys can ship him to fill in the blank country.
Right.
They then would have a meltdown about him going anywhere. And they would look even worse if they were to go down that road.
Oh, I think they would hide him.
Yeah.
Right.
They might do
we
that
wouldn't
too.
know where he's at for a while.
He'd be in Pelosi's house.
Rosie's place is open there in Jersey.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I think they would be moving him around like
Oh yeah, you're
of mass
probably right.
destruction.
I agree with you there, John. They'd give him a place to crash between all the members of Congress who have gotten rich off the taxpayer in their second homes.
We'll find out who's the sanctuariest sanctuary city, right?
Yeah. Maybe Bernie can lend his third home to his buddy Kilmar.
Got a room for you.
Yeah,
Out
that's
back,
right.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Next on KCMO, what came out of Frank White's statement in Jackson County is just beyond the pale. It was worse than I would have expected from Frank White on these assessments from 2023. He is still violating a state order. And we'll get the reaction from Sean Smith, Jackson County lawmaker, coming up on KCMO. But right now, the seventh caller is going to see Kid Rock tomorrow at T-Mobile, right here in Kansas City. 913-408-7957. 913-408-7957. And you will be seeing Kid Rock tomorrow night at T-Mobile.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Who's got those last pair on our show of Kid Rock tickets there, John?
John Heisler in Kansas City, Missouri, calling in, being number 7 this time around.
All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations there, John.
Uncle Cracker and Kid Rock tomorrow night out at T-Mobile Center.
It's going to be a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be a good time.
One more chance to win tickets today.
Yep, 10:45 on Keatsman's show here on KCMO Talk Radio. Okay, so yesterday, Frank White, Jackson County executive, was up against a deadline to comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission's requirement that they roll back the assessments from 2023 to a maximum of a 15% increase. Frank White puts out a statement, a letter to Jackson County lawmakers yesterday saying, in a few moments, my office will publicly announce that residential property assessment increases in Jackson County for 2025 will be limited to no more than 15%. Okay, that's not how this works. The Missouri State Tax Commission was not talking about 25, talking about 23. To me, that is a wild, just not even a misinterpretation. It's just Frank White basically telling the state and its citizens in Jackson County to pound sand. Sean Smith is on the legislature. He's on KCMO. Sean, good morning. Your reaction to Frank White's decision yesterday?
Good morning. So first off, I thought you called me because I won the Kid Rock tickets.
So nope. You're going to have to buy your own way there. Hey, you're a hot shot in the legislature. You can figure that out. What happened? His phone dropped out.
He hung up on us because he was mad at us because we didn't give him the tickets.
Can you call him back for me, please? What's that all about? Guy wanted Kid Rock tickets. Now he's all pissed off. He hung up mid-phone call. That's not how this goes. I mean, if he wanted them that bad, I might have maybe been able to make it work, but geez.
Well, we got a jumpsuit. You can pretend like you're on the ambulance crew and you just kind of wander into the open door. Sometimes that works.
That could work, I suppose. All right. You're not actually mad at us, are you, Sean?
No, the call dropped on my side, Pete. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's totally fine. I'm just glad you're not actually upset that we didn't get you Kid Rock tickets.
Yeah. So that was the slimiest move I think that I've seen this county executive and his chief of staff make. To put out this notice that says, oh, we're going to only increase things by 15%, ignoring the state tax commission, ignoring the harm that they continue to cause taxpayers, and trying to frame it up like they're doing us all a favor. It was just disgusting. And I will tell you what, this follows a pattern. In 2019, when they did an illegal assessment increase, they turned around and because Frank was going to be running in 22, 21, they didn't do a proper assessment and just capped increases. So this very much follows a pattern. And the bottom line is, if I'm getting a 15% increase on top of an already illegally large increase, that's just egregious. It is cruel.
Yeah, and it's like I thought that what Frank White did yesterday was the most offensive thing he could have done because the insinuation is that basically people are too stupid to realize what the Missouri State Tax Commission required the county to do. And that was rollback 23. It had nothing to do with 25. So what can you do now?
Yeah, so we passed an ordinance that demanded that they follow the State Tax Commission ruling. And what I expect may be coming is a court action indicating that he has to follow the law based on the ordinance that we passed, perhaps even the county legislature and the State Tax Commission as the plaintiffs suing Frank White and the county executive and the assessor.
Wow.
All of which harms the taxpayers. Like we're just, the delays are harming the taxpayers. The delays are harming the taxing entities, which Frank claims to be trying to help here. And the reality is the taxing entities have cash reserves and they can recoup the losses that Frank has caused them over a period of years. And that's the same period of years that most taxpayers who can afford to wait, I would suggest we repay them via future tax credits. That the process is not that complicated. Frank is making it harder and more complicated by delaying, and it is absolutely abysmal.
So let me ask you this then. When will 2025 assessments start being sent out, and what are residents supposed to do with these?
That's a good question. I really want to get some more clarification. So we have a meeting on Monday. We'll have presumably somebody from the county executive's staff on site, as well as our county counselor, who I believe his input was included in this decision. I desperately want to hear from them, get some Q&A. They've avoided the media because they know what they're doing is wrong. So they're crawling under a little rock. I hope they'll show up at our legislative meeting on Monday, and I can get some more answers and clarify things for people. But the reality is it's probably going to be that people will need to appeal, and part of their appeal could be, you've measured me in 25 off of an illegal 23 number, so I want my 22 number plus no more than 15%. Like that's probably what we're looking at, is 75% or upwards of 150,000 taxpayers needing to appeal, which will just overwhelm our BOE. So he's creating a nightmare for taxpayers. So
last minute here, any update on the recall effort you can share with us? You may have heard some conversations this week here on KCMO with Keatsman and Lavoda saying that there's basically $150,000 out there someone's got to pay to get these signatures confirmed to finalize the recall.
Yeah, so I chipped in $1,000. So Democracy in Action's the organization that's kind of the fundraising arm that's trying to pay the private company that got 30,000 signatures. I will say that in addition to those 30, there's already over 20,000 that have been certified by the election board, and a group of volunteers, totally grassroots and unpaid, were out at the last local election at the beginning of April. They'll be turning in probably another 6,000 to 10,000 because it's so distributed. It's hard to estimate the exact numbers, but I've got about 5,000 sitting on my kitchen table right now that they handed me and asked me to turn in. So, I mean, it's going to happen, Pete. We could use the help if anybody has $149,000 laying around. But independent of that, I will just say that I think the people who originally committed to pay that company money need to step up and pay them the money. So,
in the last 15 seconds, who are those people?
Democracy in Action is a nonprofit or 501c4 that they created, but behind that, I don't really know, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. That's a lot of Kid Rock tickets, but we'll see if we can find the money. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it, Sean.
Thanks, Pete.
All right. Sean Smith, Jackson County Legislator on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up next, a bizarre local story about how DOJ is cutting NOAA funding and what that could do for Kansas City. I'm not buying it, and I'll tell you why. Coming up right after the news on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. Take a deep breath with me. Take a step back, and let's use a little bit of common sense here together, shall we? 8:05, good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. It is obviously an extra Good Friday as well. And we're glad you're making this morning part of your day. Whether you're traveling for the Easter holiday weekend on the KCMO Talk Radio app, if you missed some of the show, it's always up on the podcast as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. When we're done here at 10 o'clock, when Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled comes up. So Fox 4 did a piece last night that I just thought was beyond bizarre. And not because they were trying to dig into a story that might be legitimate, but because I didn't think some obvious questions were being asked. So the headline read, NOAA funding cuts erasing years of weather data for experts. NOAA is the National Center for, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. You know, the big weather honchos in the country. And I'll play some of the package for you. And then I just want to, take the hysteria out of it, take the political feelings out of it, try to take Elon and Doge out of it, if you can do that, if you're capable, and just ask some very obvious questions here.
Critical and historical weather data now is mostly unavailable.
What was the weather 20 years ago on this date? We don't know anymore.
There are 6 regional climate centers in the United States managed by NOAA's National Center for Environmental Information.
Because we've always relied on NOAA from their official observation sites.
Kansas is covered by the High Plains Regional Climate Center. You see here, its website says funding for the Regional Climate Center program lapsed on April 17th due to a suspension of federal funding from NOAA through the Department of Commerce.
The only climate center that has not lapsed their contract yet is the Northeast Climate Center.
Theirs, though, is set to expire in June.
I'm going to manually copy all of this information from the 150 years of weather data that we have in Kansas City into an Excel sheet here at Fox 4.
Fox 4 meteorologist Jacob Lanier is sifting through and saving Kansas City weather records.
My worry is the longer that this goes lapsed, the more likely it is that we lose that data forever. And that's unrecoverable. That's 150 years of science. You're starting over.
Well, let's all say a prayer for the weather guy who's going to copy data into an Excel spreadsheet. All right. Moment of silence, please, for the weatherman who has to copy data into an Excel spreadsheet. Just brief moment of silence for him, please. Okay, hold on. All right, back to the show. Gonna make it.
He's the only one that does that. He could sell that and make some money.
I guess no one's ever thought of that. Copying data into an Excel spreadsheet, John. There's a first.
I got me one of them Googles.
Yeah.
So I just typed in 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, you found it.
April 2005 ranked as the 32nd warmest April.
Oh, there you go.
In the 1895 to present record.
Whoa.
I don't know. I've got the back way around the interweb here.
Yeah.
Apparently. I'm on the dark web here with this 20-year-old weather forecast.
If Boomer John can figure it out, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
I think the kids will be able to be.
Grandpa can get it.
So you heard the hysteria of Doge funding was impacting the High Plains Regional Climate Center that provides some of this historical data to Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. And, of course, the Midwestern Regional Climate Center serves Missouri and a bunch of other states to the east and north from there. And they say that, these funds for these climate centers lapsed yesterday due to a suspension of federal funding from NOAA through the Department of Commerce. Now, maybe that's true, but I think my immediate thought here as I'm going through this story is, if the funding stopped, why would all the data just disappear? If the data is just in a database or on a website and you stopped funding, why would all the data just go away? Right? Like, the data is stored somewhere. The work's been done. If someone gets fired at a job and they spent years, putting together information for a company, their work doesn't go away with them. They may have lost a job. Their job may have been cut, but any work that they've done, still exists somewhere. This notion that, decades and decades of weather data just goes away because a portion of NOAA may not be funded under the Department of Commerce, it doesn't make common sense to me. And if there is a reason for that, that is what you cover in the news. Not like, let's put the sob story weatherman on there. Oh my gosh, I'm copying data into an Excel spreadsheet. Woe is me. Oh gosh, I got to pat myself on the back now. You guys should see me copy and paste this data into the Excel doc. Woo, boy, there's heroes and then there's weathermen copying information into Excel spreadsheets. I'll tell you, John.
I was with you. It's like, where does the information go? Lord knows I've got half a dozen friends who are deceased. I keep getting their birthday things on Facebook, so certainly Meta could use the help, apparently.
Yeah.
Getting rid of data that's supposed to disappear.
Hey, maybe they could store it somewhere for them.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this, and I'm like, the minute you remove the emotion, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm not sitting here pretending to be the NOAA expert, but I know this much. The decades of data does not go away, should not go away, unless NOAA or someone inside of NOAA or somebody's inside of NOAA are basically trying to prove a point. So they're going to shut down the website and they're going to not allow weather guys in Kansas City and gals in Kansas City to access this stuff. And then it's like, well, then we've got a problem inside of the bureaucracy. Then we've got bureaucrats who are trying to make life more difficult for everyday weathermen and weatherwomen who are just trying to do their jobs by proving, see, we're going to prove how important we can be. It's like, no. Then we've got rogue employees in the federal government who need to be blown out. And that's why Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, is spot on when he analyzes Doge.
The issue is they're not whacking enough.
They're not, man. Let's go to Randy. What's up, Randy? You're on KCMO.
Hey, I think I've solved the entire issue with what's going on. The same people that have complained, and I know multiple people, older, younger, everything, complain about the government and all the wasteful and the politics and all this kind of stuff. And then you turn around and arrest them and they complain. I think we've got a giant case of Patty Hearst syndrome going on in our country. Because they are literally sympathetic to their captors.
Oh, gosh. That's good. That's good. Well done there. Well done there, Randy. Jonathan's in Kansas City. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, I'm kind of curious as to the reason too, Pete. If I could speculate, maybe a possible reason. I know with a lot of these public agencies, like I know the state of Kansas, their Secretary of State or their DMV, paid a huge contract for their web, their digital space and stuff. So maybe the government, that agency, has a huge contract with a webmaster, and they have to pay a monthly fee to maintain that website and to keep it up and host it and all that. So maybe when the funding lapsed, they stopped paying the webmaster, and the webmaster would take the website down and all the data on that website. That's possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if they set up a bloated IT contract that way. I know, isn't that what they were investigating? The state auditor, they were investigating Hickman Mill School District for that bloated IT contract. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had a deal like that with the NOAA agency.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, listen, as someone who has side businesses owning websites, you can renew on GoDaddy for $12.99 a month on a yearly basis. So it just doesn't make sense that the whole website and all the data goes away because they defund a couple of sectors of NOAA. On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, tell the meteorologist there's usually an option to export to Excel. That's well done. And how about this text coming through? This is on my personal phone. Just saw this pop up, and I said, I got to look at this one on the air. Our good buddy Mike Thompson, meteorologist himself, of course, for years. Now he's rocking it in the Kansas State Senate. Says, Pete, NOAA's been lying for years. You're correct. The data is there. NOAA needs to be spanked big time, he says. Let's go.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
A little spanking of NOAA. That'll get some people aroused. I'm not going to go that far. But you know what? If that's your thing, it's fine by me. I like it. 8:15, good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO, 913-408-7957. Coming up, who's going to get arguably the best open job in the Kansas City area? I will tell you who and why, sadly, race may be a motivator. Next on KCMO.
On Friday's Guy Benson Show, chief political anchor here at Fox News, Brett Baer, on all the political news of the day. A big show coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio.
I haven't seen something this rigged since the 1985 NBA draft. As the conspiracy theories go, Patrick Ewing was all set to go to the New York Knicks because, well, the NBA wanted the Knicks to be good. Ewing was the star of college basketball. And there still is a conspiracy 40 years later that the NBA rigged the 1985 draft in favor of the New York Knicks. Well, fast forward 40 years, and we may have a rigging of our own here in Kansas City. And that rigging ties to who is going to be the next city manager. The mayor announced yesterday there are 3 finalists in Kansas City for the city manager position after Brian Platt was fired in the last few weeks. And those finalists are 3 people most of us don't know, but that's not the point. The finalists are acting city manager Kimiko Gilmore, assistant city manager Mario Vasquez, and Pat Klein, a former assistant city manager who retired 2 years ago after overseeing construction of the new airport terminal. So it's kind of a perfect DEI finalist where you've got a black female, a Latino male, and then a white guy. So it kind of, you check off those boxes when you're trying to play that game, right? You kind of have 3 different backgrounds, 3 different folks, 2 males, 1 female, the whole thing. Kimiko Gilmore is going to get the job. She's been the acting person since Platt was put on leave and then fired. And I don't know if she's the best person for the job. I hope that she is. I don't know her. I don't have an opinion on who should get the job. I don't care, frankly, who gets the job. I want the best person to get the job. But you know and I know she is getting the job. And it ties back to the frustration of some on the city council from 5.5 years ago when Brian Platt got the job. It was in late 2020 when Brian Platt came from Jersey City, New Jersey, and became the Kansas City, Missouri city manager. And it was at that time that urban leaders and city council members expressed frustration. There's an email that I've shared with you on the show dated October 31st of 2020 that went from Councilwoman Melissa Robinson, 3rd District, east side of Kansas City, and said to Mayor Quentin Lucas in an email, "What happened to your commitment to seeing a black female city manager? That was a public commitment, and there was no reflection of that commitment. Going from that statement to choosing a white male is unconscionable," she wrote at the time in an email. Besides the fact that putting that in an email is one of the dumber things you could do for a multitude of reasons. Even thinking that is just as bad. Saying, I'm upset with the person who got the job because of their skin color. It wasn't like, hey, Brian Platt's not qualified and we should have hired so-and-so who happened to be a black female, right? Brian Platt's a white guy, but that's not the point. He wasn't qualified because of A, B, and C. We should have hired this person, black female, because of X, Y, and Z. That's not what was said here in this email. It was literally, you hired a white guy, that's unconscionable. We used to call that racism. And if you know and I know, the shoe had been on the other foot and some white council member had said it's unconscionable that you hired a black person for this job, you know what? They'd be ripped. And they should be ripped, by the way, because that is unconscionable. It is unconscionable to suggest that somebody should not have a position at any level of government or in any company because of their skin color. And I know I'm not the only media person in town who has this email. The Kansas City Star has this email. They didn't do jack with it. You know why, and I know why. Meantime, if that had cut the other way, the Star would have had editorials going on 30 days running. Every day they'd run a new editorial on this very story. They wouldn't stop. This would be the most egregious thing in Kansas City history. And yeah, it's bad, but they would have blown this thing so far out of proportion. They would be headline news every day in that paper, John, or whatever's left of it.
Yeah, like the Carmelo Anthony situation in Texas, it's the right combination here for critiquing. There's only there's only one magic combination because you can change them all around and only one gets you the big prize.
Yep. And here's where this is actually a disservice to Kimiko Gilmore. And this is where DEI is actually wildly unfair and irresponsible, frankly, to minorities. It makes some people think that you got a job because of who you are, not because of your accomplishments. And that is inherently unfair to Ms. Gilmore. She may be the best person for the job. I don't know. I don't really know anything about her qualifications versus the other people she's up against. But now there's going to be this backdrop of, well, did she get the job because? And that's not fair to her. That's where, when you enter race into the picture, even if it's under the guise of like, well, I want to help uplift people, all you do by not having a meritocracy is have this thought in the back of other people's minds of, oh, is this person only here because of, right? And that's the wrong attitude for all of us to have. But it's also become kind of this thing now over the last half decade as the DEI movement has obviously taken off, and it's calmed down a little bit, thankfully, over the last couple of years or so, but it's still wildly prevalent. And it hurts these people. So my prediction is Kimiko Gilmore is going to get the job because, they got their scalp with Brian Platt. And you go back 5 years ago and you have people on the city council who said, you know what, Brian Platt should not have gotten it because of his skin color. And now she's the acting director. They're not going to take it away from her and give it to Pat Klein. They're just not going to do that.
The white roads and bridges guy.
Yeah.
From Clay County, it says.
Oh, is that what they called him?
Well, no, he was the previously interim roads and bridge director for Clay County after he retired from the airport.
Yeah, he's toast. Yeah, he's got no shot.
That's what we wanted, though, the roads and bridge guy.
Yeah, that's to me, that's kind of what matters here in this job. That's what a city manager is all about. But if Kimiko Gilmore gets it, I'm going to be happy for her. But it's sad that there's going to be this like underlying theme of, well, did race play a factor? And that's unfair to her. Coming up, I've got an update on not our stadiums. Nope, not our stadiums. No, there's another major American city that is having a fiasco with its stadium. How does that work in Kansas City? We'll explain it next.
KCMO, Kansas City's place to talk on 95.7 FM and 710 AM, a Cumulus media station. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Does this sound familiar to you? 3 years after the Chicago Bears announced plans to build a new stadium, the franchise seems caught in a rinse and repeat cycle. Huh. How about that? That's in Chicago. So if you think the ineptness and the confusion that exists right now in Kansas City when it comes to our stadiums is unique to Kansas City, it's not. It's a mess right now with the Chicago Bears in market number 3 in this country. Actually, I think Chicago's now market 4 after Houston because Houston keeps growing and people are fleeing Chicago left and right, except for our buddy Ray Stevens, who decided he should go back to Chicago for some weird reason. I don't know. Anyway, the Bears are now widening the scope for a new stadium spot beyond downtown, which could upend the tradition of the Bears' home games played within city limits. Last week, their team president, Kevin Warren, said Northwest suburban Arlington Heights could be the next stadium site. The focus now is on both downtown and Arlington Heights. Warren told reporters at the NFL owners meeting. This is from Axios. I'm reading here in an article that dropped this week. Now, it was just a year ago that the Bears teamed up with the city of Chicago to unveil sweeping plans to build a new dome stadium just south of Soldier Field. But obviously, that didn't pan out. Why? Well, the goal was then to head down to their state capital in Illinois, Springfield, and persuade the governor and the General Assembly to cough up billions in taxpayer dollars. Well, the governor, J.B. Pritzker, threw cold water on that plan. And there's no movement in this year's legislative session in Illinois. So now what's going on is the other side of, I guess it's not the other side of the state line. It's a little bit different there. But a bill in Indiana, as of yesterday, went to the governor's desk, Governor Braun in Indiana's desk, that creates a professional sports development commission, which would develop a plan and recommendation for attracting a professional sports franchise to Northwest Indiana. Now, Northwest Indiana, I don't know the area super well. I know there's people who live in Indiana, commute to Chicago. Indiana's a much better tax climate, but it's not as much of a bi-state region as what we have here in Kansas City, obviously, but you could get away with calling it that if you want to. But now Indiana's making a play for the Chicago Bears. This is literally exactly what we've been experiencing here in Kansas City. City wants to keep a team wants to stay there, state's unsure. Do they want to kick in tax dollars? I don't know. And then suddenly here comes, the white knight from the other side of the state line saying, we're here to save the day. And what's fascinating is it's not based on political parties. Illinois, as a state, their governor, deep blue, saying, we're not giving you billions for a stadium. Sorry, Bears. In Missouri, the initial reaction over the last couple of years has been, sorry, Chiefs, sorry, Royals, we're not giving you billions of dollars for a new stadium. Now, they might be changing their tune because they don't want to see them go to Kansas. But then, of course, you got Kansas swooping in and saying, our star bonds are here as our white knight to save the day. Please take us up on our great star bond offer. You can't go wrong. It's the exact same playbook. So whether it's Kansas City or Chicago, you're dealing with a lot of the very same things. Our issues are not unique to Kansas City with these stadiums because these stadiums are now so expensive to build. You're talking about potentially with a dome stadium, especially in a place like Chicago, $3, $4, $5 billion. That's insane, especially when you're talking about states that in blue states are going broke, right? They're going broke because they're high tax states. They can't squeeze any more money out of their residents. Their residents are fleeing their states. That's happening in Illinois and California and New York. And in red states, they're trying to get more efficient because they want to cut taxes. So both sides of the political aisle at the statewide level realize they can't really afford this stuff. At least they can't provide these blank checks to these teams anymore. Those days are over. They had a good 20, 25-year run on this where they got public funding on their stadiums, but it feels like the jig's largely up. And for different reasons, depending on whether you're a blue state or a red state, But like outside of New York, where they're building that Buffalo Bills stadium for billions of dollars, and it seems like there was certainly quite a bit of corruption there, it appears from the outside looking in with the governor. Outside of that, most of these stadiums are having some trouble getting off the ground. The other example is Stan Kroenke, who built the Rams Stadium out in L.A., but he did a lot of that with his own money, and that's obviously not what's going on here. So you've got this comparison between Chicago and Kansas City that's fascinating. And now here in Kansas City, we're obviously kind of in this wait-and-see mode. We believe that North KC is back in the mix for the Royals. I've long felt that was the best location for them. If they're going to leave the K because of their concrete cancer. And did we ever find out who diagnosed the concrete cancer? Was it like Dr. Jill Biden or Dr. Fauci who diagnosed it with concrete cancer?
Got it there on Fauci, I think.
I think. Or was it even Dr. Rex Archer?
Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Boy, I love Thanksgiving.
That's right. I mean, it had to be one of those three stooges, Biden, Fauci, or Archer, who diagnosed the K with concrete cancer. Be careful going out there. You know, you might have concrete falling on your head. You never know. But if we're going to really do this because of concrete cancer, and I'm not saying that's why they're doing it, it's obviously just part of the conversation, then you're going to be looking at, I would say, North Kansas City as the best spot. The Kansas spots stink for baseball and make no sense. The downtown spot for Kansas City, Missouri, they were okay, but you've got a multitude of issues, obviously, that you got to face as well in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, that you would not have in Clay County. So Clay County makes all the sense in the world. Then you've got, of course, the Chiefs and what they do. And, I get asked this just when I bump into people, when I bump into listeners, they always ask, like, whether or not I have a preferred spot. And I'm not afraid to say I think the Chiefs should stay where they're at. Like that's my opinion. I believe the Chiefs have no business leaving Arrowhead and should stay where they're at. The economics, yes, are part of it. But it's not like cheering for Missouri over Kansas. That's not what it's really about. Like I don't have a dog in that fight necessarily. It's more about what makes the most sense. And kind of like Frank White yesterday putting out that letter, thinking that people would be too stupid to understand what the Missouri State Tax Commission told them to do when they said, hey, you've got to roll back the 2023 assessments to a maximum of 15%. And Frank said, yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to limit the 2025 assessments to a maximum of 15%. And it's like, man, how dumb do you think we are? It's just wildly insulting. It's the same thing in Kansas with the Star Bonds. I just find the pitch of them to be so insulting from state lawmakers who support them when they act like there's absolutely no risk, there's no cost to you, there's no way that you as the taxpayer can lose, when that's just not true. It's not. It's a failed government program that has to be backed by the state. Has to be. If this were some free lunch with no risk to taxpayers, it wouldn't attract any investors for a large speculative investment. A Chiefs domed stadium at $3 to $5 billion. A Star Bond project that is like, 10 times the size of any Star Bond project that's been pulled off or tried to pull off in the state? You've got to have the state and therefore the taxpayer as a backstop for the investment. No one's going to invest in that unless the state of Kansas, which means you, the taxpayer, is the backstop. People are not going to invest in something that speculative without having the state back it up. So this whole don't worry, you're fine, it's going to be okay. Stop lying to me. Just at least be honest. Just like Frank White. Just be honest with me on what you're doing. If they were honest about it, I would at least accept it for what it is. But when they do the whole no additional taxes, no risk to you, that's just not true. It's not. And then they know it deep down, but they don't want to get that far in the weeds of explaining how this is basically speculative investments from big investors. And the big investors need a guarantee from the state that if this thing completely collapses and doesn't work out and doesn't pay itself off, well, don't worry, we're going to come out and bail you guys out. They need that assurance. You know that, and I know that. And the question, as always, with the Star Bond is like, well, how big is the Star Bond district? How large can you draw a district to pay back billions of dollars in bonds to create the tax revenues that you need to pay them off? I don't think you could just draw a district around a stadium to pay off $3 billion, $4 billion in bonds for a dome stadium out by the Legends. I don't think that math works. And the reason I don't think the math works is because guess what? If the math worked out great, I'm pretty sure they'd be breaking ground by now. So they've got to have, trust me, they've got very smart math people there looking at these numbers and saying, I don't think they work, but here's the trick. The state of Kansas could theoretically draw a Star Bond district that encompassed the entire state, that encompassed all 105 counties or whatever it is. They could do that. And you can make the case that somehow Garden City, Kansas is benefiting from having the Chiefs in Wyandotte County. It would be insane, but just know they can draw a Star Bond district wherever they want to justify additional sales tax revenues paying off the bonds of a stadium. Like, that's not out of the question. So just, leave that one out there as well and realize that anything could be on the table if they were to seriously look at the Chiefs getting to their side of the state line. And right now it seems like everything, of course, is kind of in a stalling pattern until the teams figure out what exactly Missouri as a state is going to bring to the table. Buy, sell, hold is coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio. At 9 o'clock, our feature Friday guest is Dr. Christine White, Freedom Pediatrics. She's a friend of the show, has been on the show many times, and we're going to have her in because I want to get into the big New York Times piece that we talked about earlier in the week about ADHD in children, how it's being overprescribed or overdiagnosed, the better way to put it, what it means, and then also the autism conversation that RFK is bringing back to the forefront this week as well as they start that investigation. She's going to be here at 9. It's going to be a great conversation on 95.7 FM KCMO. All right, we are approaching what? Mother's Day. Graduations are coming up next month, and you're like, man, what do I do? Well, you go to Diamonds Direct. That's what you do. It's really that simple. You go to Diamonds Direct at 119th and Row. You walk in there and you tell Angie and her great team that you heard about it here on KCMO. And then you will get that white glove treatment that you will get at, maybe some other jewelry stores, but you'll get it to the next level. And if you're like me and you got to, drag the kids over there, they got a little play area as well. Kate was there the other day. The girls were there with her, and it was smooth as could be. But that's also because they have free cleanings, lifetime upgrades, and if, a diamond pops out or something, they will replace it at no charge. That's what she had to get done. Because when you're a mom running around with 3 little kids, stuff just pops out once in a while. It happens. And I don't mean kids. So whether you're shopping for a ring, a gift, or just browsing, they'll help you find something perfect. That's what they'll do. Engagement rings, Mother's Day gifts, the graduation sparkle, they have got it all. And the prices are great. They're not going to be pushy salespeople, and they'll always keep it within your budget. Start shopping now at diamondsdirect.com or just go say hi at 119th and Row.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
8:51, rolling till 10 o'clock. Kevin Keatsman, uncanceled, takes over then. He's got another chance, final chance to win those Kid Rock tickets at 10:45 as well. So his show's been on fire since he got here in December, and now you get the little bonus of the last chance at Kid Rock tickets coming up in a couple hours. But it is that time of the week. Let's go.
It's time to buy, sell,
Have it at 10, 12 and a half, 15.
and hold.
All right, John, what do you got for me, brother?
Buy, sell, or hold. Mayor Lucas is resigned to the Royals, leaving Kansas City, Missouri.
Ooh, I'm buying that. I heard a guy yesterday who is basically okay with the Royals staying in Missouri, but leaving Kansas City, Missouri, if he can keep the Chiefs. I asked him this yesterday. Here's what he said. If someone were to say to you, listen, Mr. Mayor, the Royals might go up north, but it guarantees that you keep the Chiefs in Kansas City, Missouri, and in Jackson County, versus taking the risk that they may go to the other side of the state line and look out west on I-70, would you sign up for that deal?
Yeah, I would. I mean, look, it's not my preferred outcome, but
you could hear the tone in his voice, right? Yeah. He just sounds exhausted by the whole thing. Yeah, I would. Sure. Okay, just please don't go to Kansas. It's what it sounded like to me if I'm kind of interpreting his size and his inflection in that answer yesterday here on KCMO. And you can hear the entire interview up on the podcast after the show. Or actually, that one's already up. So, yes, absolutely. Quentin Lucas, I think, is resigned to the Royals leaving if it guarantees that he can keep the Chiefs ideally where they're at Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah, the yes came pretty quick there, right? Sometimes you get a, let me say this first.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I thought he was going to do that.
Before I get into that, let me.
I thought we were going to get the
You
Lucas
get
weave.
qualifiers. Yeah.
We did not get the Lucas weave yesterday on that. We got the straightforward yes. Yes, I would.
With the resignation. Whew.
Yes, with that kind of sigh. And that was maybe the most direct answer we've gotten on that topic in a long time.
Those of you in a relationship recognize that yes is all right, whatever.
Will you give me that one?
All right.
Yes.
If we don't, if this is the last time we have to talk about it, fine.
Yes, we've all been there, John. We've all been there. Oh, what's next? What do you got for me here?
All right. Buy, sell, or hold. America witnessed the biggest space flight in the nation's history this week.
No. Katy Perry's not an astronaut. Lauren Sanchez and Gail King are not astronauts. By definition, they're not astronauts. Because according to the FAA, you have to control the spaceship to be officially considered an astronaut. They were riders. That's all they were. Like when I take my daughters to Shields and, we just go around and around and around and around at Shields. I'm just riding it. That's all I'm doing.
You're a crew member.
I'm not operating anything. Okay? So, no, the Blue Origin folks are not part of the biggest space flight in the nation's history, unless you want to talk about astronauts who have combined to have the most Botox and lip injections in the history of astronauts. They may qualify for that, but that is about it.
It returned firmly intact,
yeah.
luckily.
Yeah, and thank goodness. But, man, I can't get over the way Katy Perry jumped out of that thing and kissed the ground after 11 minutes being in the air. You would have thought she was left up in space by Joe Biden for 9 months, like the real astronauts were. Jeez.
I'm not sure about kissing the dirt. I'd be like,
yeah. Even the dirt's like, come on, Katie, stop that, please.
All right, buy, sell, or hold. Mark's RBC Heritage Parlay. Can he stay hot after winning his Masters Parlay last weekend?
Well, I got to give you credit. You won your parlay that you teased with us last Friday, and now you've got a parlay for us for the tournament after the Masters, which usually is not a very star-studded event because a lot of the top guys will take off the week after the Masters. So this is interesting, Mark. What do you got for me, big guy?
All right. The match started yesterday, so they've already gone through one round. Right now, Justin Thomas is in the lead -10. So got him in the top 5, finishing the top 5. Justin Thomas finishing top 5. Scotty Scheffler, of course, got to have him finishing in the top 5. And then the rest of these guys just need to finish in the top 20. I've got Russell Henley in the top 20 right now. He's in the top 3. Wyndham Clark, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, Brian Harmon, and Justin Rose. All of those guys are in the top 20 right now. They just need to maintain their positions, and this will hit $5 to win $115.
I see Morikawa's down at 33 in the tournament.
Did he move?
Yeah, he might be playing already.
Yeah, they might be playing.
Well, 5 to win 115 on that little bet of yours there in the RBC Heritage. You got to take it easy on these golf parlays, Mark. You're going to get yourself in trouble, okay? But you know what? I will buy it.
All right.
I will buy it because you're on a heater, baby.
That's right.
All right, let's go. Woo! Anything on the Royals this weekend?
Oh, man.
Don't lose?
Yeah, for tonight's game, I mean, Cole Reagans, I got him throwing 8 strikeouts. He's been on a heater lately, speaking of heaters.
Yeah.
So getting a lot of strikeouts. I do think they win tonight because Cole Reagans is on the mound. But in order to win more than one game, they need to score 4 runs or more. That's the key is getting that 4 runs. They win almost every game that they do that.
Yeah. Well, baseball scoring is down this year. I was reading a story this morning on Outkick about that. Now, I know it's only April, but still, the scoring is down this year, which is not what Major League Baseball wants. There's buy, sell, hold. Nice job, fellas. Dr. Christine White is going to join us next, talk about how RFK can tackle the autism issue, the ADHD conversation as well. The New York Times had a huge piece on that and how kids are being overdiagnosed. Don't miss her in studio next.
Does this thing need to move?
Friday morning, it is great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM every Friday from 9 to 9:30. We bring in an in-studio guest, talk about one of the big topics of the week, or just somebody who we think would be a great fit for the audience. And someone who we've had on this show before, who is now joining us here on a Friday morning, is Dr. Christine White. She is with Freedom Pediatrics, runs and owns Freedom Pediatrics here in Kansas City. You can find them at freedompediatrics.com. Her past also included a run for Blue Valley School Board a few years back as well. So, Dr. White, thank you for being here. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So let me just start off with a big piece in the New York Times that ran on Sunday. It was a multi-thousand-word piece. I sent it to you after I read it to get your thoughts. And the headline read, "Have we been thinking about ADHD all wrong?" And the article goes on to note that, when doctors started prescribing Ritalin and whatnot for ADHD, they thought it would cap at about, 2% of kids. And we're at a point now where we've got about 7% of kids who are now being diagnosed and given some of these drugs for ADHD. And the piece in the New York Times basically said, are we doing this right? How have we been handling this right? What are your thoughts on this piece? And we'll get into it more here on KCMO. But when I sent you that, what was your just initial reaction to it today?
Well, I thought it was a good start. It brings up the topic in a very in-depth way so that you don't just get a soundbite, but you get a little bit of background and perspective. I think it is always good to question whether or not we are diagnosing things correctly. And then if we're overdiagnosing, are we overtreating? And I think in this case, I think we are overdiagnosing and we are overtreating. So I think anything that starts the conversation around looking at what really is going on with these kids is obviously a great article.
What does it mean when we see these kids, especially boys, who are getting these diagnoses of ADHD? And it's like, well, they can't sit still in the classroom. Well, we've got these kids in school for 8 hours a day at 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And then we wonder why they can't sit still. I mean, right. I don't like sitting still in this seat for more than 15 minutes. And I get up and I walk around and I do things, and I'm, 36-year-old grown man. So are we trying to actually solve a problem that in some cases, not all cases, but some cases doesn't exist because of this box we've put these kids in?
Yes. In some cases, you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Especially boys, but some girls, but especially boys, they are different. They need to move. They do not keep their butt in a seat for 8 hours very well. Many schools have 2 short recesses for kids, in kindergarten through 3rd grade. That is not enough. The kids are expected to do work that may or may not hold any interest for them. Schools often are teaching to a test. You can make learning fun, but I'm not sure that the way that we teach now always makes learning fun. So I have a lot of families that take their kids out of the school system. They'll homeschool, or they'll find a Montessori school, or they'll find sort of a co-op where the kid can go and be maybe in the outdoors for a number of days a week. And those kids can learn so much better. The kids that do homeschooling also, they can get the work done in about an hour and a half to 2 hours that would take 8 hours to get done at school. And then they have the rest of the day to play outside, to explore their world, to learn more about something that they would like to learn about, to take a field trip somewhere fun. So it's an artificial environment that we're putting these kids into. And this started way back, like at the start of last century, when the large industrial magnates wanted workers, and they wanted people who could be forced to do something for 8 to 10 hours a day, and then they would be good workers later. And that is not the way to teach or raise children.
And it's not the way of the world anymore either.
Right.
All right. I mean,
right.
And it feels like now we're in a place where the school setup has been basically a way to provide daycare for two working parents in many respects. You
Yeah.
know, you can get both parents out of the house,
Yep.
send them to work, and you know that they're at school till, in some cases, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And that just feels like it's a disservice to what is actually in the best interest of the kids. I mean, if homeschoolers can teach in a day, in an hour and a half, what it takes 8 hours to do in a school,
Right.
that's not an efficient use of anybody's time.
It's not. And unfortunately, in our society, we feel, and in many cases, I'm sure it is the reality, that both parents do need to work.
Mm-hmm.
And once those kids are out of daycare and you're not paying the hefty daycare bill, you do have free daycare. I see more and more families in my practice where the mother is choosing to stay home. And it is amazing for that family. It's amazing for the children. It's amazing for the mother. She's not trying to go to work and then come home and work at home. It's amazing for the father. It's a great way to improve mental health, learning, sleep, diet. I mean, everything. If you've got a parent that's able to stay home and do the most important job of the family, which is to raise children. It's not a secondary thing. It should be our primary thing, and we should be putting time and effort and rewarding that and
praising that.
And praising that. And luckily, I am seeing more and more women do it, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I get it. Everyone can't do it. It's difficult, but we also have a system that I think is promoting it too, which is problematic as much as anything else.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I have 4 daughters, and the goal is always, okay, you're going to do well in school, and then you're going to go to college, and then you're going to get a job, and then you're going to get married, and then you're going to pop out 2 kids, and then. Is that the best thing for everybody? Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
One of my daughters is actually sort of bucking the trend, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not getting out of the rat race. I'm not doing it." And I admire that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, our society, in financially, pushes a lot of people into that, but also just socially, it's what's expected. You're told you can have it all. You can be an executive, and you can be a wonderful mother, and you can be a wonderful wife. It is hard to be all those. I have done it.
I was going to say, you're doing it.
I have. And I mean, one of my youngest daughter, at one time I asked her, I said, "Did it bother you that I worked so much?" And she goes, "Yeah, it did." She said, all these things at school, there were times that you weren't there and all the other moms were. And I mean, I had a full-time job. I worked, 50, 60 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be there, but that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with the ADHD conversation now, where do you think it needs to go from here in terms of acknowledgement? This New York Times piece is where we started, acknowledging that kids have been overprescribed. They've been overmedicated on this stuff. What's the answer to just kind of step back as a professional like you are, as a doctor, as a pediatrician? What does your industry need to be doing on this front?
The main problem I see with what our industry does with this diagnosis in particular, and pretty much any diagnosis, most doctor visits are scheduled for 15 minutes. The first 4 minutes is sucked up with checking in and the nurse coming in and getting your vitals. So you might get 8 to 11 minutes with that physician. If you are trying to see if a child has ADHD, you need time. You need to go through and check on what are they eating. Diet is so important to how that brain works. You need to have a discussion about sleep, both quantity and quality. You need to have a discussion about how much time do these kids spend outside, in the sun, in nature? How much time do these kids spend on screens? And you need to also look for other issues that could be mimicking ADHD, which would be reading difficulties. Because if you can't read, you're not going to pay attention. You're just going to give up, and you're just going to be wild. Or other learning disorders. Some kids have auditory processing problems, and they can hear, but the message doesn't get through to the brain right. So they just kind of give up. They may have visuospatial disorders. So there's so much that needs to go into this evaluation. And with where I am now, I get an hour with somebody, and if I don't get through it all, I have them come back next week, and we do another hour. So we can untangle all the pieces that go into a, quote, ADHD diagnosis. If you have 15 minutes or legitimately 8 to 11 with the physician, you can write a prescription in 8 minutes. You can say, yep, you filled out these 2 forms. Looks like he's got ADHD. Here's your methylphenidate. Come back in a month. Let me know how it's going. You did not address any of the underlying reasons that might be causing this. And if you find those reasons, you can often, and I'd say in over 50 or 60% of the cases, you can, quote, cure their ADHD, because it wasn't ADHD. It was lifestyle habits that were leading to brain inflammation, and that brain can't work right.
So that, and Dr. Christine White is here on KCMO. So the diet in particular, I mean, I know that's the MAHA movement, as it's been called, the Make America Healthy Again movement, is obviously a big thing right now. The diet for these kids, and listen, we all know that kids are going to have their treats, and they should. I mean, they can't eat celery all day. They shouldn't eat celery all day. But we also know there's just more stuff in our food, especially kids' food, than there was when you were a kid and when I was a kid. So how do parents navigate that part of the conversation?
If you want to make the best choices food-wise to help a child that may have focus issues, first thing you do is you start eating whole, real food. You stop eating things that come in bags, boxes, or packages. You stop eating things that have chemicals on the back you can't pronounce. You stop eating things with refined sugar and flour. You stop eating things with seed oils, which causes inflammation in the brain. If you can, 90% of the time, eat real, whole, and as much as possible organic food so that you keep the glyphosate and other herbicides and pesticides out of the food, which is very damaging to brains, you can see a big improvement with that. The other big thing that can help probably 50% of kids with ADD, it may not totally fix the problem, but can make a big difference, is to cut out gluten and casein, which casein is one of the main proteins in milk or dairy products. Those two foods are inflammatory for all humans. Some people have more trouble with it, but it causes inflammation in all of us. And so for those ones that are very sensitive, if you can go gluten-free and dairy-free, you may see overnight improvement.
All right, and the screens too. I want to touch on. I mean, that's a huge thing for parents. How do you monitor that?
First of all, you do not give your child an iPad ever, and you try to prevent the school from giving your child an iPad. You do not give your child a cell phone, a smartphone, until they are 16. If you need a cell phone in middle school, you give them a flip phone. You do not introduce it to your child. If your grandma gives you one for Christmas, you give it back. No screens. That you do not need it. It does nothing good for them. I'm a little less worried about TV, especially if it's used as kind of like a social event, like you're going to watch the Chiefs tonight as a family.
Yeah.
But you just don't introduce it. It is like cocaine for the brain. And those kids will clamor for it, and it definitely increases attention and focus issues and behavioral issues.
Yeah. Well, we are going to take a break. I want to come back with the autism conversation. Obviously, RFK announcing this week that they will be investigating why there's been such a massive increase when it comes to autism over the last 50, 60 years. And we'll get Dr. Christine White of Freedom Pediatrics' thoughts on that next on 95.7 FM KCMO.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
We are rolling through our Feature Friday segment with Dr. Christine White, Freedom Pediatrics here in the Kansas City area. Find them at freedompediatrics.com. So RFK this week, Dr. White announces that he is opening up just investigations into autism and why we've seen such skyrocketing rates of autism over the last, 50 years or so. We've just seen this number continue to increase to now 1 in 31 8-year-olds who are getting diagnosed with autism. So what are your thoughts on the investigation and what's going on here?
I think the investigation is long overdue. We have known we've had an epidemic of autism since at least the year 1995-2000. For example, I was born in 1970. There was 1 in 10,000 cases in 70. In 95, there was 1 in 500. So that was a big jump.
That's a huge jump.
Yep. And then in the year 2000, 1 in 150. So we have been asleep at the wheel. This has been going on under our noses. And there's been a lot of discussion that it's genetic and we just are recognizing it better, and so we're diagnosing it better. And it is true that genetics plays a role, but it is not the main driver of our epidemic of autism. There's a quote that says, genetics loads the gun and environment pulls the trigger. And that is exactly what we're seeing here. If autism was primarily driven by changes in our genes, well, first of all, genes don't change that fast.
Yeah.
You cannot have a genetic disorder that rises in epidemic fashion. So it's something environmental. And the genetic differences that can lead certain people to have trouble with environmental triggers, you may have differences in how you detoxify things or how your mitochondria work or how you deal with inflammation or how you deal with oxidative stress. And those are probably at a cellular level what is going on in the brains of these kids with autism. They have genetic differences in how they deal with those insults at a cellular level. But what are the insults that are causing this change? What are the environmental triggers? And it's not just environmental triggers that happen after you're born.
Mm-hmm.
It goes all the way back sometimes 2 generations to what your grandmother and your grandfather's health was. But it really does start with what your mother's health is. So you cook inside your mom for 9 to 10 months. And anything that she eats or injects or any illnesses that she encounters while you're a fetus, you get that too. So if she has a fever, that causes inflammation in the mother. It causes inflammation in the baby. If you're a little 6-week-old fetus, that can be a lot of inflammation for a 6-week-old fetus brain. If the mother lives next to a field where they're spraying glyphosate, which is a very popular herbicide, that has been tied to multiple pathways that can cause autism. So also just looking at maternal health, like diabetes or obesity or autoimmune diseases, those are all inflammatory conditions. That causes inflammation in the baby and in their brain. What is that doing at a cellular level with the mitochondria, the oxidative stresses? So I think we always think, oh, it's just what happens after they're out. And definitely there's things that happen once they're out too. What do you feed your kid? Are you feeding them processed stuff or are you feeding them a whole real food diet that's free of glyphosate? Are you looking at other ways that toxins are getting in? And nobody wants to talk about vaccines, but vaccines are a toxin. And there are things in vaccines that are neurotoxic. So I'm not saying that that's the one thing, but it is part of it. These kids are surrounded by basically a toxic soup, and there's not one thing that you can point to say, this is the cause of autism. There's probably 93 things, but all of these things lead to cellular damage. And for certain kids, they can't handle that, and it pushes them into autism.
It's all of what you're talking about,
Yes.
right? It's 90. I mean, you know, you also have women having babies older than they've ever had them before.
Right.
I mean, all these things.
Right.
So that's what I liked when RFK was talking about this last night. He said, we're not starting this, like, they're not trying to backtrack from an answer.
Mm-hmm.
He's not saying, hey, it's vaccines and I'm going to prove why it's vaccines.
Right.
He's saying, we've got a blank slate. It's, as you noted, all of these things wrapped into one. And we just want to find answers here. And that's
Right.
what any responsible person in his role should be doing, right?
Exactly.
It's not even, there's nothing political about this. Who wouldn't want the answers?
Well,
Well, I guess they're rhetorical, but there are groups that would not want the answers.
Exactly. So, if you are the producer of glyphosate, or you're the producer of phthalates or BPAs or other, toxins, you may not want this research done. And you may have a lot of money and power, and you may try to shut it down. And you may have been successfully shutting it down for the last 25 years. And I do believe that there is a decent amount of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's not officially political. It should not be political.
Yeah.
Sadly, it is political. I applaud him for what he's doing. It is outstanding, and I hope that we can figure out ways to prevent future problems. And maybe when we find these toxins, we figure out how to get them out, and we can help those kids that are already affected.
Well, Dr. Christine White, Freedom Pediatrics, find her at freedompediatrics.com. Thank you for coming in. I know you had to move some patients. Thank them for us as well. And we're glad that you were able to come in on KCMO.
Thank you so much.
Christine White on 95.7 FM. News is coming up in 1 minute. We are back with our caller of the day on KCMO.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
9:35 on a Friday. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is 30 minutes away. He'll join us to wrap up the week here in about 15 on KCMO Talk Radio. So that time of the day and morning when we give you our caller of the day, which I'll set up real quick. Fox 4 ran this piece last night, and I'm rolling my eyes. Listen, we've got some good friends at Fox 4. John Holt's great. Mike Thompson was there forever. He's fantastic. He's now in the Kansas Senate. Jonathan Ketz, I think, is actually one of the best just pure reporters that we have in Kansas City. But, man, we all miss once in a while, right? And you want to talk about a swing and a miss? Woo! This was that last night. I'm watching this piece, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Talking about NOAA, of course, running the Weather Service, and how DOGE is cutting a part of NOAA. And if you listen to the Fox 4 piece, well, listen to it and then try to strip out the hysteria that you hear and use some common sense as you listen to this package.
Critical and historical weather data now is mostly unavailable.
What was the weather 20 years ago on this state? We don't know anymore.
There are 6 regional climate centers in the United States managed by NOAA's National Center for Environmental Information.
Because we've always relied on NOAA from their official observation sites.
Kansas is covered by the High Plains Regional Climate Center. You see here, its website says funding for the Regional Climate Center program lapsed on April 17th due to a suspension of federal funding from NOAA through the Department of Commerce.
The only climate center that has not lapsed their contract yet is the Northeast Climate Center.
Theirs, though, is set to expire in June.
I'm going to manually copy all of this information from the 150 years of weather data that we have in Kansas City into an Excel sheet here at Fox 4.
Fox 4 meteorologist Jacob Lanier is sifting through and saving Kansas City weather records.
My worry is the longer that this goes lapsed, the more likely it is that we lose that data forever. And that's unrecoverable. That's 150 years of science. You're starting over.
Let's say a prayer for Jake the Snake there in the Fox 4 studios for having to copy data into an Excel spreadsheet. Moment of silence for old Jake. These weather guys, they got it tough these days. Copying weather data into an Excel spreadsheet. Could have exported it, I'm sure, but hey, got to build up the drama here a little bit. Mm-hmm. Copying the data and putting it all into an Excel spreadsheet because it all might just go away. Does it make any sense to you that, yes, DOGE and the federal government is looking under the hood of every single bureaucracy, looking for cuts? We're $36 trillion in debt. But does it make sense to you that magically 130 years of weather data just would disappear? The work's been done. If you're making cuts, why would the data that's already been compiled just magically disappear? Just doesn't make any sense when you think about it. But this over-dramatized piece from Fox 4 last night, I'm like, come on, guys. Man, and I'm sorry, but putting one of the weather guys up there to be like, oh, woe is me, got to copy the data from, the website into an Excel doc. I don't know how we're going to make it around here. Jeez, just spare me.
We're going to have to get the Farmer's Almanac out.
Yeah, man, tell me you're out of touch without telling me you're out of touch. You got to be kidding me with that. So that conversation led to our caller of the day on KCMO Talk Radio.
It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
Let's go to Randy. What's up, Randy? You're on KCMO.
Hey, I think I've solved the entire issue with what's going on. The same people that have complained, and I know multiple people, older, younger, everything, complain about the government and all the wasteful and the politics and all this kind of stuff. And then you turn around and arrest them and they complain. I think we've got a giant case of Patty Hearst syndrome going on in our country. Because they are literally sympathetic to their captors.
Yeah. There you go, John. That to throw it back with the Patty Hearst reference, too.
Well, Symbionese Liberation Army, we're going back to the 70s
yeah.
with that one.
Yeah.
That was current events when I was in high school.
Yeah. And when he made the reference, I was like, Patty Hearst? And I was like, oh, yeah, that story.
I was a bitch lugging those stone tablets around all the time, man. Literally, though, I did have current events. Got Newsweek subscription as part of class, and that was certainly one of the stories we followed.
I got Time for Kids back in 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I don't know if you remember.
Weekly Reader, those kind of things.
Did you get Time for Kids back in the day, Mark? I think it came out when we were kids in the 90s.
I was just getting Sports Illustrated for kids.
Oh,
wow.
Well, no. Time for Kids in the classroom, though. They didn't bring that to the school?
I think they did Sports Illustrated for kids. I saw that with some of my kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a thing, too. I got that at the house. That I got to the home. But I remember getting Time for Kids in like 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade.
Scholastic magazines did the one we had. Weekly Reader would be one at different levels of education and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. No, you're right about that. And now they still got some of those magazines out there for the little ones that I think are pretty cool.
Magazine? What the?
Yeah, what is that? Newspaper. I'll never forget when Claire asked me what a newspaper was. And I was like, oh, man. It pains me that she doesn't know, but I have no reason to get one, especially in this town. What am I going to get? The Star for Woody to use as the toilet if he's got to go inside? I mean, he's not a cat.
I get more stuff out of Martin City Telegraph, to be honest.
There you go.
Around places, so grab those.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Good option there, John. Our top story of the day has obviously been Frank White in Jackson County coming down with his announcement yesterday, trying to be a good guy, trying to be a team player, no pun intended, coming out and saying that we are not going to increase your tax assessments on your home for 2025 more than 15%. Well, man, that is not what the Missouri State Tax Commission told you to do. They told you to limit the 2023 assessments from 2 years ago to a 15% max because you did not abide by state law. And Frank puts out this letter like he's totally in compliance. It was so arrogant. It was so aloof of him to do it this way. But then again, arrogance and aloofness has more or less defined his tenure as Jackson County executive. And the legislature, I mean, Sean Smith was on this morning. If you missed that, it'll be up on the podcast after the show. He was livid about it. But Manny Abarca, who actually has been on the right side of this whole deal, I think in part because he wants to run for Jackson County executive. That's my thought. And I guess a broken clock is technically right twice a day. He's been on the right side of this whole deal. But then he comes out yesterday in the wake of the decision by Frank White, and he calls this vindication. I'm like, vindication for who?
I think this is vindication for taxpayers for at least 25 and 26. It's also a sign to say that the 23 lawfulness is very much in question if he's taking this position now for 2025.
This is not vindication for anybody, anywhere in Jackson County. This is Frank White saying, I will not comply with state law and state orders at the Missouri State Tax Commission. That's it. That's what this is. There is no vindication here. The vindication comes when the signatures come in for the recall, and that's finally on the ballot. That's the only vindication that's coming up in potentially the near term on this entire story after how the county executive handled this thing yesterday. And at some point, the Missouri State Tax Commission is going to have to come out, maybe today, maybe Monday, and say, no. Your letter is not complying with what we required of you. We're talking about 23, not 25. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Kevin Keatsman. He's, of course, the host of Uncanceled, taking over at 10 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio. And as always, we'll wrap up the week with him next on 95.7 FM, KCMO.
On Friday's Guy Benson Show, chief political anchor here at Fox News, Brett Baer, on all the political news of the day. A big show coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO Talk Radio.
Before we get to that, the Vince Show at 11 and 15 minutes away from Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled. Your last chance at Kid Rock tickets this week at 10:45. He's playing at T-Mobile tomorrow. What's going on, my man?
How much you paying Guy Benson to talk you up on his national radio show?
Oh, dude, I don't want to know.
Did you hear it yesterday?
Yeah, yeah. He told me it was coming. He told me he was going to hype up the big event.
It must have been 7 or 8 minutes he was talking about the event.
I know.
And his producer, is that his producer, the
yes,
lady? Is it Catherine?
Christine, yes.
She says she's coming. She's going to sell shot glasses. And
I know.
Going to have a hangover the next day. I think she's already decided that.
I think so.
They, at the end of his show, talk about drinking a lot, don't they?
They do. And they're excited to get here to Kansas City on June 12th.
That's going to be a great, great time. If they're coming to have that much fun with everybody, they're ready to go. He seemed genuinely excited that he's doing this.
I think he is. All the time. You get national guys and gals, and some of them, they want nothing to do with their local affiliates.
Yeah.
But to his credit, when we made this deal a year ago, he was like, I'll come to Kansas City. I'll do an event, hang out. I was like, okay, all right, let's see how this goes.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
Seems like a great guy. He's very talented.
Yes.
He's good.
And we'll both be there. You're going to be there?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be there.
If I'm invited.
Oh, you're on the invite list.
I'm on the invite list?
You're on the picture.
Do I get a +1? What do I get?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I do?
Yeah. You bring Jessica. We'll have a good time.
I was scared to ask her if she wanted to go or not.
No. I mean, sales folks are selling your table, my table, and his table.
Awesome. Let's do it. That sounds great.
We're all in, man.
I got some friends maybe will buy my table. How's that sound?
That sounds even better. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You get on them. I mean, we're selling this thing fast, too. It's going.
That's cool.
So
it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great time. And, yeah, KCMOTalkRadio.com, June 12th, will be at Boulevard in their suite area. I've not been there. It's not the main area where you hang out and drink and order food. It's another level that I've not been to, but apparently it's a pretty nice deal.
The men in the audience listening, ask for this for Father's Day.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's Father's Day weekend or just before that.
Yes,
should be
Thursday before Father's Day.
Yeah, come on, guys. Tell them that's what you want for Father's Day. You want to go see Guy Benson and hang out with Kevin and Pete. Let's go have some fun.
Meet and greet, pictures, hors d'oeuvres, drinks, dinner, the whole thing. So it's going to be good. What's not good is what the heck's going on down there in El Salvador. Man, did you see the way this Maryland senator was looking at this illegal immigrant wife beater in these photos? I mean, when's the last time Jessica looked at you like that?
Never. Never. It was unbelievable. It was like it was his idol.
Yeah.
It was like the scene in Indiana Jones where he finally gets, at the very beginning, not the last one, the first idol that he takes off the deal, the gold thing in the very opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he rubs his fingers like, oh, I got this. And he grabs that idol and he looks at it. He's like, oh, this is so great. That's the way he was looking at this dude.
Yes. It was creepy. It was weird. It was pathetic. I mean, Trump has backed these people into a corner on this issue. And now they're flying to El Salvador for this guy.
They're running for president. Nobody ever heard of this dude. Van Hollen? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I've not even saying it. The other guy, I don't say his name. He's MS-13 man to me. That's all I got for you. When I saw him wearing a Chiefs hat, I'm like, of course he is. And I immediately, like Mark said earlier today, I thought it was Chiefsaholic's brother. Went to El Salvador, robbed a bank. He's hanging out at Seacott, and he's got his Chiefs hat on. Who put the clothes on him?
Yeah.
He's a prisoner.
I know. And where'd he get the hat? I'm still trying to figure out the Chiefs hat.
I like Bukele, and I like what they're doing there, but why? Put him in his prison clothes and send him out there. He didn't look like he had his hair cut yet either, right?
Well, they were going for the Maryland dad look, right? That's what it's all. It's all just about.
Bukele wouldn't do that.
I know.
What happened here? I don't understand that. And he was in street clothes, not his prison suit. They strip them down. They wear like these little shorts and shirts, and they shave all their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in that prison, that's what they do. They haven't done it to him yet.
I know.
Is he in a holding area, or are they trying to decide? I'm a little worried about maybe where this is going. I'm a little worried.
I think so as well.
The left saying that he was already in that prison is a lie, I think. I don't think he actually had been in that prison yet.
Well, that's the only thing that makes sense unless he's getting special treatment in that prison.
And maybe there's a separate wing or something.
I don't know. But I'm like, did he bring the Chiefs hat with him from Maryland when he got deported? Like, none of it makes any sense to me.
Or did that Bukele say, let's put these... He was wearing like a camp shirt. What do we call it? We used to call those things like Madras shirts,
like a short sleeve button down.
Yeah,
I mean,
like you'd hang out at the beach resort or something. Was that what they were going
Easter
for?
colors, too.
Seriously. And then Bukele makes a post. He says, it was some reference to, yes, he's at a welfare check. He's healthy. And for that, he gets to stay in beautiful El Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
Was he talking to us about tourism? Because I'd consider going there. If it's really that safe, are Americans going to start, or conservatives going to start going on vacation there? Their beaches are great, I guess.
Maybe.
I don't know what's going on. I thought they dressed him up like a tourist to try to sell tourism or something.
I'll let you find out first, and you can report back, all right? Maybe
Really?
you can do a remote there.
Well, I don't want to go to Mexico, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So the Kansas City Star, Josh Hawley called out the Kansas City Star just a few minutes ago, last hour, and he shares this screenshot of the Kansas City Star writing this piece last night, headlined, "Fans noted Kilmar Abrego Garcia was wearing Chiefs cap in meeting with Senator." Hawley writes, "Here's the KC Star slobbering over an MS-13 gang terrorist and wife beater. As always, a national embarrassment." So I'm reading this piece, and they've got all these tweets from people about, as they write, fans noted he was wearing a Chiefs cap. And the first tweet they put up is mine. And all my tweet said is, plot twist, Abrego Garcia in a ... Chiefs hat today. I mean, anybody who knows this show for 2 seconds knows I'm not going to be a fan of the guy. And they portrayed, I guess I'm a fan of his hat. It's like, no, it's just a local angle on this national story. And where's he getting the hat? There's so many questions I have.
Guys, Chiefsaholic was a hero to people.
Well, that's true.
Okay? I mean, if you see somebody in a Chiefs hat, they become your hero. There's people on the left that are going to love this guy even more because he had a Chiefs hat. I mean, he was here illegally. He dropped a bunch of kids on our soil. He supposedly somehow is married. He's clearly a wife beater because there was a restraining order on him, an order to stay away. He was identified by the police as an MS-13 gang member. He was identified by 2 courts as an MS-13 gang member.
Mm-hmm.
He had orders for deportation, which we took care of, and now they want this guy back?
Yeah.
I don't know, because of a clerical error or something, that he was in with some people that were convicted murderers and he's not convicted yet or whatever. This is absurd. And the Democrats step right into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this Van Hollen, my God.
He's a pathetic character.
It's unbelievable.
And then you got like Kansas City activists and, washed up part-time radio hosts like Fartsel saying, let's get him to a Chiefs game. Let's bring him out to Arrowhead. Yeah, Clark Hunt will love that. You think they're going to put him on the big screen? My goodness, never in a million years.
And then the final thing, the cherry on top for MS-13, man. He's been seen in Chicago Bulls gear.
Yep.
And now he's wearing Chiefs gear. Nobody likes that fan.
Yeah.
Because you're the worst sports fan in El Salvador. I'm not going to say in America. You're the worst sports fan in El Salvador. Who's your soccer team? I'm guessing it's not El Salvador. Is it Brazil?
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Everybody
hates that fan.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he's got his Dodgers hat, too, somewhere buried in the luggage. So that's
Chiefs win 3. I'm buying a hat, baby.
Oh, man. Have a great weekend, Kevin.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Kevin Kiesman Uncanceled next. Those Kid Rock tickets at 10:45.